I showed you previously the average of 45% for default. Now, if you've been around security, especially with IPSs, you probably know that you don't just stick a product in default and leave it. There is some tuning that's required. You need to generally tune up so that you're adding more signatures that cover applications that you have in your network. And this is generally a manual process with most of the products out there. And you can see here in the example that there's products that are scoring as low as 17%. Yes, it's hard to believe, but it's true. And that was recently reconfirmed with the vendor who came back on site with us, and up to 89%. So you can see here that the red bars show how much protection you could obtain if you spend an extra amount of time with someone who knows what they're doing to tune the product. And some products are easier to tune than others. So this is definitely an area that you want to keep looking at. Not only which product do you pick, but if you're not tuning, you're potentially missing, in some of these cases, here 30–40% of protection, which you could be having. So that's at the high level, but the products that catch the most from an overall percentage basis on our test or anyone's test aren't necessarily best for your assets. And so what we encourage people to do is to really look at the assets you're trying to protect that are most important to you. It's really not feasible to say everything because you do have priorities, and I'm sure your CEOs have assets they want protected more than others. And then try and understand what coverages exist down to the CVE level against specific target asset classes. You can reference systems like OSVDB or OVAL that will help you understand which platforms and which applications at patch levels have vulnerabilities. And this is important because it helps you understand your remediation. The reason you buy an IPS is to act as a virtual patch against the systems that are behind that on the network. Because if you've got a large organization with 10, 20,000 machines, applying patches to that number of machines is non-trivial. So you can often use an IPS to demonstrate that it's a compensating control if you fall under various audit requirements like PCI or whatnot. So you can keep that in mind. And it can also give you a sense of, how active is my vendor that I'm about to choose at protecting the assets that are important to me. Again, vendors have different focuses, and it's hard to protect everything. And NSS has, based on our testing, we have some tools that will help you understand that data. Evasion. Evasion in the context of security effectiveness is absolutely critical. Evasion, for those who don't know, is a way of hiding an attack or changing it so that it can get by a security product, whether it's an antivirus or IPS. Different types of evasion include fragmenting packets over IP, TCP segmentation. URLs can be obfuscated, FTP. You're probably also familiar with some JavaScript obfuscation that can happen where attacks are encoded and chunked and encrypted. So these are things that if you have an attack that works but is blocked, you can apply an evasion technique to hide it, and it will get through some products. So we make a big point of testing evasion or anti-evasion on the security products that we test. And as a note, about half of the vendors failed to detect our basic evasion test in December. And a number of them have made improvements, and we encourage that. The bar on evasion is constantly moving as the attackers invent new ones. So this is definitely something that can make a good product that will cover, say, 80% of attacks. It can reduce it down to virtually zero by being able to get any attack through by using evasion. So you should know your limitations. Obviously, you're working within a constrained budget, project scope. You can only protect so many locations with a certain dollar amount. You really need to consider the total cost of ownership. I've got some calculations on that later on. Be realistic about the time that you're going to have to dedicate to evaluate and deploy a solution. Do you have the skill set in-house to really configure and maintain and tune these products? Maybe that's something that you want to solicit help from your vendors or security consultants. Don't be afraid to ask for help. The state of IPS is certainly continuing to evolve, and it's a complex technology.